All righty. Oh, no promos here. Let's see, we're live. Let me check the feed to make sure we're good. Let me see if audio is good. Audio is awesome. Let's see.
After they threw.
Oh, there's other people live right now. Check the feed to make sure. I can't control that. Alrighty. Cool. Let's see what else I need to do. Okay, so a quick description. This is just a read along, my personal read along for the year, reading all the news articles from liberationnews.org. Feel free to hit the links to support liberation.org, liberationnews.org. They also have books for sale through the bookstore, which I recommend if anybody wants to read it. Social Reconstruction, A Better Future of the United States. I just started reading it. I recommend it because just reading the introduction, I'm like, wow, I really have been missing this book in my life. Anyways, I don't work for them. Like I said, they're a nonprofit.org. But I do value their knowledge, their wisdom, their information, and their way of educating people. So highly recommended. Okay, we are going to move on here today. Let's see what we have to read. I don't like. One more second. I'm going to try to adjust one more thing. And what I need to adjust. Oh, that ain't it. Available. Remind me later. Okay, no adjustments for now. Carry on. Let's see. Maybe I can do it here. Cameras. Design combination. Alrighty. All right, just going back to the chats and carrying on. So Liberation News has a couple articles today, so this will be a short one. Let's see, it has 1, 2, 3 articles. Stop the frame up, drop all charges against who 3. Just get into it, since we're already about well into the 1 p.m. schedule. First article is called titled Mass Democrats Could Have Saved Carney Hospital If They Wanted to. Article by Kat Yoder and Sofia Pena, August 31st, 2024. And it reads, Carney Hospital, the only hospital in the Dorchester neighborhood of Boston, closed its doors on August 31st, following a bankruptcy claim by the for-profit medical manager Steward Healthcare Group. Steward has listed all of its hospitals in Massachusetts for sale after managers paid themselves millions of dollars instead of using their profits to pay the hospital's debts. The result is a massive healthcare crisis for Boston's most vulnerable residents. Governor Maura Haley and Boston Mayor Michelle Wu have publicly declared that they cannot do anything to save Carney. This is a bold-faced lie. Workers and residents outraged over steward's greed. Workers organized with SEIU 1199 and the Massachusetts Nurses Association, as well as hundreds of other residents, patients, and healthcare workers, are demanding radical solutions. At a public hearing on August 13th, held by the Department of Public Health, Kearney employees denounced Stewart for putting their severance and PTO in limbo as Kearney closed. Many Kearney employees have worked at the hospital for over 20 years. And there's an image here for those who aren't watching. The image picture of a woman holding a sign saying, "No hospital, no Healy." The description reads, "Rally for Kearney Hospital outside the Massachusetts State House in Boston, August 28th. Liberation photo, Mika Fong." Article reads as continued, or whatever. Healthcare workers made it clear that Stewart has a long history of driven negligence. Many community members highlighted Stewart's closure of Quincy Medical Center in 2014, in which Stewart broke their contract with Massachusetts to keep the hospital open for 10 years. One resident said, quote, "They strangled the hospital for 2 years, keeping doctors and patients out so they could tell the Department of Public Health that volume is down, exactly what they have been doing at Kearney," end quote. The Attorney General and Governor did nothing but uphold the contract in 2014 and expected Kearney to take care of Quincy's patients. Now Kearney is closing. The current government has yet again failed to hold Stewart accountable, enforcing the conditions for the medical crisis to continue without end. Dorchester, left in the dust. Boston is home to 20 hospitals and several medical schools, many of which are nationally renowned for quality care they provide. However, Boston's biggest and most diverse neighborhood has long been excluded from the benefits of Boston's medical scene. Another image, excuse me, excuse me while I take a sip of tea here and describe the picture. There's a picture of a few more activists holding signs reading "Healthcare is a human right," and "Only thing worse than corporate greed is state-sponsored corporate greed." All right, and the description to the picture is, "Rally for Kearney Hospital outside the Massachusetts State House in Boston, August 28th. Liberation photo, Mika Fong." Continuing the article as read. Dorchester is already a, quote, "pharmacy desert," end quote, a neighborhood with little to no direct access to essentials like diapers, baby formula, and pharmaceuticals. 8 Boston pharmacies from Dorchester to Beacon Hill have closed since 2020. In January, community members protested the closure of the Walgreens on 416 Warren Street in Roxbury. The store was no longer earning enough profits to compete with large companies like Amazon and Walmart. This is simply capitalism at work. When profits drop, companies close down or declare bankruptcy as they see fit, and the working class left in the dust. A clear solution exists, but people put people over profits. The state government could easily use eminent domain to seize Kearney Hospital and prevent it from closing. This is exactly what Healy's administration planned to do for 4 other hospitals managed by Stewart. Let me read that again. This is exactly what Healy's administration plans to do for 4 other hospitals managed by Stewart. Healy refuses to use eminent domain for Kearney because Stewart claims there are no, quote, "qualified bidders," end quote, Kearney from the government, meaning there are no buyers who could buy Kearney for a price Stewart is willing to accept. Boston Center, which is purchasing some of Stewart's hospitals, refused to bid on Kearney due to, quote, "years of underinvestment that would be hard, if not impossible, to reverse," end quote, at a profit. Another here described, some people are holding signs. This is a rainy, I can't really read the signs, but it's Hospital outside the Massachusetts State House in Boston, August 28th, Liberation Photo, Mika Fong. And the drive for profits has created other obstacles to a state takeover, but the reality is that these obstacles could be overcome if city and state leaders had the desire to do so. The state has already allotted $80 million to give to the new private owners and operators of steward hospitals. A sum could have been used to sustain Kearney instead of supporting private profiteers. At the same time, Massachusetts is sitting on an $8 billion, quote, rainy day, end quote, fund, which could be used not only to save Kearney, but to invest in a hospital and improve its standard of care. We need an entirely new system. Boston used to mainly nonprofit hospitals, but that all changed in 2010 when State Attorney General Martha Coakley allowed the nonprofit system to be bought by Steward Healthcare Group. Steward is indeed a greedy, ugly, for-profit management group, but it is the for-profit politicians who created the conditions that allowed them to Chester and bleed the community. Here's another image. I can read these signs better of the activist. The sign reads, Stewart Screwdas, closing EMC, makes me want to Ralph, do what is right, protect our health care, sure looks like a rainy day. Rally description is rally for Kearney Hospital outside of Massachusetts State House in Boston, August 28th, liberation photo, Mika Fong. Boston University professor, article continues as written. Boston University professor of health law, policy, and reform, Sager, wrote a 7-page letter to Martha Coakley advising against the sale. In the letter, Sager says, quote, but what if the sale actually has the effect of facilitating the closing of one more of the hospitals? Is it wrong-headed, I think, to allow for-profit firms, transient or spasmodic financial needs to determine which Massachusetts hospitals survive, end quote. The entire situation could have been avoided had city leaders listened to this warning and required hospitals to be run by the state for the people instead of for profit. Hashtag Boston, hashtag crimes of capitalism, hashtag healthcare system, hashtag Massachusetts. And there's related articles underneath the article here because it's such a short article. Boston pharmacy desert due to capitalism competition, not theft. Then there's the interview, scientist harassment won't stop Black students organizers at Harvard. The first one was actually the most related here. Boston pharmacy desert due to capitalist competition, not theft. These are important articles. The answer, in my opinion, and how I relate this, obviously, is it's right in the article here. They should have never privatized these hospitals. It should have remained state-owned. It should have been socialized so that it would have made, so instead of making a for-profit venture that enriched a bunch of already fat cats that are now running with their bags and leaving the debt and the destruction for the state to handle, this should have just stayed as a nonprofit hospitals. That's how all hospitals should be. Nonprofit, fully socialized, fully made efficient, as well as our medical system in the United States, whether it's mental or physical health care, should all be universal health care. Why? Because it's good for the nation. It's good for the people. It's good to have a healthcare system that fully supports everybody equally so that we have a healthier nation. We have a reactionary healthcare system that depends on a for-profit system so that it creates an issue like diabetes, and then it creates a temporary reactionary solution. Instead of changing and giving people healthier food and teaching them how to be healthier people, we emphasize on freedoms to eat a bunch of crap, freedoms to sell a bunch of crap that is not only unhealthy for people, but some things have been demonstrated or proven to have a higher risk of creating cancers and diabetes and all kinds of health illnesses and even mental illnesses. So this is why we as socialists, communists, Marxists, leftists, egalitarians, whatever you want to call us, um, as humanitarians for everyone around the world, we support universal health care, good education, mental health care, physical health care, therapy, because education is power, right? Wisdom is knowledge and it's power. So we need, as even people that are of other ideologies like Stoicism, philosophies like Buddhism, etc., or even Christians, all religions that believe in uplifting the people, this runs parallel to your goals, to uplifting people, to supporting people, to helping the poorest and the weakest. So it is very important as leftists that we support this egalitarian mentality for all, and we create bridges with people across religions that are using their religion to uplift people and not using their religions to justify war crimes, such as war crimes in Gaza. Okay, so not much else I can add to this article, except that it is necessary to know who your oppressors are and who your actual comrades are. And for us, the working class, our comrades are the same people that we work with, people in our neighborhoods, not people living in ivory castles. Alrighty? Okay. So I will proceed with the next article. Um, all is good. A few seconds to set up the next article and set myself up. Got to clear my throat. All right. This current article reads, Stop the Frame Up. Drop all. This current article title reads, Stop the Frame Up. Drop all charges against the Uhuru 3. Written by the Liberation Staff, September 2024. The photo of Amali Yeshitela speaks at an anti-NATO demonstration on March 18, 2023. Credit Vince Tsai. And the article reads as follows. This week, the trial began for 3 members of the Uhuru movement falsely charged prosecutors, pushing the bogus, quote, Russian interference, end quote. Amali Yeshitela, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville were indicted last year in a brazen attack on the right to speak out against imperialist U.S. foreign policy and racist injustice. The trial is taking place in Tampa, Florida, and is expected to last several weeks. This sham trial is unfolding just as the Justice Department, State Department, and intelligence agencies working with obedient corporate media outlets are launching an obviously coordinated campaign to build up the false narrative that Russia, China, and Iran are carrying out massive plots to influence the outcome of the election. These lies serve to justify an aggressive U.S. foreign policy intent on deepening the new Cold War. The arguments being presented in court would be laughable if they were not attached to such vicious persecutions. Prosecutors using an old trick employed every time there's a witch hunt against people fighting for change. They are citing long-standing beliefs held by the targeted organization, arguing that those views coincide with the interests of a foreign power, and then drawing the baseless conclusion that the targeted group is advocating for their positions because they were told to do so by that foreign power. In the case of this trial, the Justice Department is citing protests held in 2016 against the genocidal policies of the U.S. government towards Black people and the organization's opposition to the U.S. proxy war in Ukraine. The government and the corporate media want us to believe these activities were the result of a Russian influence operation, even though they are reflective of political positions the Uhuru movement has held for decades. The logic here is absurd. Prosecutors said that this was a plot to, quote, turn neighbor against neighbor, end quote. By this reasoning, every time Black people protest against racist oppression, that means they are contributing to, quote, divisions, end quote, and therefore doing the bidding of Moscow. Or take the war in Ukraine, for instance. If being opposed to a conflict the U.S. government is starting with another country means that you are automatically suspected of being an agent of that country, then it becomes effectively impossible to criticize U.S. foreign policy at all. This is part of a decades-old racist trope that assumes that Black people standing up for their rights must in fact be puppets of a foreign power. The civil rights movement, for instance, was constantly being smeared as an invention of the Soviet Union. This bogus allegation was the basis for government surveillance and other acts of repression against the movement. We demand that all charges against the Uhuru 3 be dropped immediately. No to the new McCarthyism. Hashtag New Cold War. Yeah. So the civil rights was one not only because of MLK, Malcolm X, but it was the natural movement towards liberation for the people, right? This is what Marxism teaches us, that the current conditions create the path. The current conditions are exactly what was happening in Vietnam, exactly how Black people and minorities were being used in World War II, North Korea, Vietnam, and still being racially discriminated, highly discriminated, and still kept at a lower class, right? So this led to people in general, not just Black people, not just minorities, but poor working class people and people with a solid base of morality to align with the left to push for civil rights. Again, this is similar to what may be brewing in the States, in the United States right now, which is people pushing for the need for more social programs, people understanding that the working class should unite against the ruling class, which oppresses them more and more, which can be seen by how inflation keeps going up, but wages stay stagnant or are devalued by the inflation itself, right? Everything's going up. And we can see that people are getting sicker and sicker, living unhealthier lives, being more depressed in America. So there's a base here for uplifting people to push for more socialist programs. And one of the key points that a lot of people are still supporting, even conservative people that I know that are in my circles that I speak to, are talking about how, yes, the government is very corrupt. They admit it. And yes, they understand they're not fully on the team for full socialism, but they fully support programs like better retirement programs for the elderly, better retirement homes, fully paid retirement homes, that the elderly shouldn't be paying for anything once they retire, regardless of what their condition is. They should be fully supported. And a new one, one that's been rising for years now, not only the living wages, which is independently supported by state, and uh, even conservative states like Florida have voted for a very progressive or leftist leaning living wage, which currently isn't even that progressive, to be honest. $15 an hour is still not enough at this point when it was being fought for back when I was in college, back in like 2010. So nowadays, a better living wage is almost $25 an hour. So we keep trailing behind, right? But a lot of the movement now is for living wages that keep up with inflation, uh, which is something that I believe Massachusetts has adopted, and uh, and a lot of people are fighting for more socialist healthcare programs, full universal healthcare, you know? And the only way to make that more efficient is to take the for-profit motive out of the healthcare system. So states will be able to afford better, more efficient healthcare systems to facilitate to everybody. Okay? So uh, I know I went on a tangent here in regards to the Uhuru 3, but this is why my main point here. This is why the state oppresses groups like the Uhuru 3 to make an example of them, to put fear in people's hearts that they shouldn't speak against a state that is run and controlled by oligarchs, which makes this a kleptocracy, which means that it's actually ruled by the capitalist elite that pull the branches of government like puppets. Okay, so we shouldn't be afraid to speak out because we're going to be smeared as perhaps Putin puppets or Kremlins or whatever they want to say about us. We should, as leftist, and for me as someone that studies Stoicism or philosophy, uh, I have to be more inclined to support the four pillars of Stoicism, which are knowledge, justice, temperance. Always forget the fourth one. Ah, bravery, right? Courage. So we have to have the courage to spread the knowledge, uh, and we have to have the patience to spread the knowledge. And the knowledge is true justice. You know, the true justice can only be carried out if you know the truth, if you know what really needs to be done. For example, locking people up for being petty thieves is not justice. Uh, Justice would be restorative justice, rehabilitation, programs that uplift them in their communities so that they don't have to steal because they're making because they don't want to work for slave wages. Okay, so this is an example. Activism. We shouldn't be afraid to speak out because when you speak out, uh, they make a martyr out of you. Really, they put you as a pedestal to say this is what you shouldn't do, but in the end, you become more of an example of how corrupt this system really is and how not free and how not democratic this system is and how we have to keep fighting. Okay, and spreading the truth. Right. I don't think there's much else I can say about this article. It was a pretty short article, straight to the point, very effective. Uh, but we have to keep spreading knowledge. We have to make sure that people like in the Uhuru 3 are not fully forgotten, that they're fully supported, and that their message is fully pushed forward, that the working class should be united across all classes against the bourgeoisie, which is the kleptocracy or the oligarchs or the duopoly or whatever you want to call them. We should be united to fight for better programs for ourselves, for our communities, and envision that a better program, better socialist programs in our community uplifts everybody and makes everybody safer and healthier. Okay, let's move along to the last article for today. I believe this is the last article. Yep, this is the last article for today. Last but not least, of course, let me check the audio again. Audio check 1, 2. Audio is awesome. Again, just reminding people, I read these for the benefit of people that perhaps don't have the time to read it. You can listen to this while you work, I guess, if you have one of those jobs that are just repetitive and you don't really need that much attention to it, I suppose. Or you can listen to it over dinner or whatever while you're cooking. Anyways, let me take a sip, finish off this article today. Article reads, article title reads, What You Need to Know About the Kroger-Albertson Merger by Jane Cutter, September 6, 2024. The photo is of a Kroger store in Malta, Ohio. Credit Flickr Nicholas Eckhart. All right, so it's just a picture of an aisle in a Kroger's selling fresh vegetables on one side and a bunch of processed food on the other side. All right, and the article reads, Are you worried about food prices? If so, you are not alone. Some 70% of consumers are, quote, extremely, end quote, or, quote, very concerned, end quote, about the cost of food at grocery stores. The pending $25 billion merger of the Kroger and Albertsons grocery chains threatens to continue the trend of monopolistic price gouging while leading to the sell-off and possible closure of hundreds of neighborhood stores. Federal regulators, attorney generals from 9 states, and the grocery store workers union are in court opposing the merger. Even if the merger is halted, there is no guarantee that the trends of rising prices in grocery and pharmacy deserts in working class neighborhoods will be reversed. Is there an alternative? The merger between the two biggest grocery chains with 710,000 workers between them has been in the works since 2022. Kroger and Albertsons say they need to merge to be, quote, competitive, end quote, against Walmart and Amazon. And the merger goes through, If the merger goes through, the new entity would control 13% of the national grocery market, according to Supermarket News. The two chains combined control 57% of the market in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. The Federal Trade Commission would require that 579 stores in cities where the two chains overlap be sold off to C&S wholesale grocers, which own the Piggly Wiggly chain, in order to keep the merger company from having too great a share of the market. Many concerns with the merger. Consumers and workers worry that C&S will not be able to successfully run the divested stores, which could then be shuttered, leading to neighborhoods without a full-service grocery store, as well as losses for grocery workers. This fear is based on recent experience with the merger between Albertson and Safeway, in which Hagen bought nearly 150, quote, excess, end quote, stores in the Pacific Northwest, then ran them into the ground before selling itself back to Albertsons. Several stores closed permanently as a result. Despite Kroger's assurance, the merger will likely further fuel price gouging. The FTC is currently holding hearings in court to decide if the merger should be blocked. While testifying to a Federal Trade Commission's attorney August 27th, Kroger's senior director for pricing, Andy Groff, admitted Kroger had price gouged in an internal email. He had written, quote, on milk and eggs, retail inflation has been significantly higher than cost inflation, end quote. Of course, Groff and Kroger are not simply one bad apple among the whole bunch of massive grocery chains. A report by the FTC in March showed that the grocery industry as a whole had increased prices far beyond any increases in their own costs. The report stated, quote, some firms seem to have used rising costs as an opportunity to further hike prices to increase their profits, and profits remain elevated even as supply chain pressures have eased, end quote. United Food and Commercial Workers, which represent grocery workers, oppose the merger. Daniel Clay, president of Portland's UFCW 555, testified at the FTC hearing on the merger on August 28. Fred Meyer, workers won major wage increases on their last contract. Clay explained a merger's impact. When workers strike at one store, they urge shoppers to go to a different union store. Bringing additional pressure on the bosses. A merger between the two largest chains would weaken the union's ability to use this tactic. Role of the FTC. The FTC is a regulatory agency that was founded in 1914 at a time when the negative impact of monopolies had become a major political issue. Antitrust laws were passed to rein in the monopolies without actually doing away with the capitalist system that creates them. Even this limited restraint and under the gun, Kroger has filed to reject the FTC's merger plan based on recent Supreme Court rulings that undermine the FTC's authority. Meanwhile, Project 2025 shows that the extreme right has its sights on eliminating the FTC altogether in favor of the completely unfettered pursuit of profit, even if it means grocery workers lose their jobs and consumers lose the ability to afford or even find healthy food. The GOP is not alone in wanting to undermine the FTC. According to an article on CNN, quote, some business leaders and wealthy donors are hopeful that Harris will adopt more centrist policies as she outlines her agenda, especially by dialing back Biden-era antitrust crackdowns. CEOs are widely excited about Harris. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld, founder and president of the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute, told CNN in a phone interview. The socialist solution: seize the top 100 corporations. Is there another way? Socialist presidential candidate Claudia de la Cruz and her running mate Karina Garcia proposed in their platform that the top 100 corporations be taken over and their resources used to meet the needs of the people. Why not? The 100 largest corporations in America should be seized from their billionaire owners and turned into public property, owned by the working class that created their vast wealth in the first place. They should serve as the foundation for a total reorganization of the economy in a way that guarantees that everyone in society will have their basic needs met. Massively rebuild urban and rural infrastructure, and bring down prices and rents. Inflation would be eliminated with an across-the-board price freeze. Just imagine what this could mean for working people. Instead of an inadequate system of SNAP and food banks, everyone would have access to affordable, nutritious food. There is no rational reason why billionaires should control the food supply for millions of people. They had nothing to do with creating the food or bringing it to the market. They had nothing to do with creating the food or bringing it to market. All that was done by workers. We can't depend on federal regulators and state attorney generals to defend our basic human rights. We need to unite and fight for them. Taking over the biggest 100 corporations would be a good start. #capitalism, #labor. What's awesome about these articles is that they don't just tell you what the issue is at the end. They propose a socialist program to fix these issues. I don't have much else to say about this article because, like I said, the summary really does provide a answer in general, not fully specced out, obviously, because that would lead to a whole book or articles and articles upon writing. But the article shows how the for-profit system is a very ghoulish system in which capitalism always just rewards the most ghoulish people, the elites, the kleptocracy, the oligarchs, right? And the politicians just bend over backwards for them because they're the ones that buy them. They're the ones that pull their puppet strings, right? Or they're the ones that move the sock puppet mouths. So we need better programs to fully redistribute food accordingly to everybody. I, as a Stoic and a socialist, or practicing the ideologies of Stoicism, philosophy, fully support not only universal health care as a human right, but food as a human right, housing as a human right, education as a human right. People should have all four of these to create great pillars and foundations to society so that people can enjoy their lives be wiser, make better decisions, get along better with their neighbors, and coexist better, right? Why is food in America so wasted with tons and tons of food created in America? Almost half of the food in America is thrown away. Just think about how much food we throw away just in our homes, or just how wasteful we are in our homes, or when we go to restaurants, we try the food, we throw it out. We eat meals, we only eat half of them, we throw out the rest of the half. We do it every day. I'm guilty of it once in a while myself. I try to be more conscious about it myself as to only buying food that I know I'm going to eat, trying to buy more food that isn't processed, trying not to buy food that is in plastic packaging. Sincerely, you could practically just buy fruits and vegetables fresh and live off of that. And I don't know, trail mix, peanuts, etc. But we have our things that we like, right? Like our processed foods, like pies, cheesecakes, I guess. If you're vegans, you're obviously not eating cheesecakes, but you find other processed foods to eat because they're delicious. But as a holistic person, we learn to be more in control of our urges, as to say, not overindulge, but reward ourselves once in a while with some indulgence. For example, eating maybe meat once a week, right? Or eating processed foods, like indulging in carrot cake or something, like once a week, right? And then we also do things as like take the longer road, or the road less traveled, like cooking our own food from scratch, and feeling that reward when we cook our own food, I guess, from scratch, of like, I made this myself and it tastes better than it would have tasted if I would have bought the processed product, or it tastes better because I made it at home and share it with my family as opposed to went to a restaurant and just ordered it, and they didn't make it exactly the way that I like it made, right? Um, so we have to have these holistic views, these egalitarian views, for socialism to work and for it to be uh, uh, adapted not only to the general idea of the general ideology, but to our lifestyles, to live healthier, happier lifestyles, more rewarding lifestyles. Uh, like there's the quote or the mantra that kindness is its own reward, right? You can use that with a lot of things, like I don't know, virtue is its own reward. Cooking for yourself, it's its own reward, right? You can apply that to a lot of things. Like there should be no further reward than the process of living a good life, uh, to be its own reward. Anyways, that's it for today. Uh, Not much else I can say. I can try to refresh this to see if. Oh, look at that. Socialist Reconstruction, A Better Future for the United States. You can buy it online. I just clicked on that link, and this is where it took me. So feel free to follow the Liberation website to read this awesome book. Um, let's see. Just refreshing to see if there's anything else that dropped this week. All right, nothing else. September 6th was the last article. I'm sure there will be some heavy drops soon. Now the elections are coming up. Oh, look at this. September 7th, the deep connection between Israel and Ohio's medical education and business establishments. I may have missed that. Let's see if I can read this today. All right, let's read this, and then I will withdraw for the day. It's well within the hour that I try to keep to. I've done 2 hours before because I've fallen behind so bad, or there's been a lot of articles. All right. So the article is titled "The Deep Connections Between Israel and Ohio's Medical, Educational, and Business Establishments." Article by Viet Yen or Viet Yen. September 7th, 2024. The picture is of somebody in front of the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio, holding a Palestinian flag with a peace sign in their hand. And there's signs in the foreground, well, in the background or in the between ground of Free Palestine. All right, and the article reads as follows. Over the last 11 months, a mass protest movement across the United States has brought, quote, divestment, end quote, into the lexicon of the U.S. public. While many were surprised that the government and educational institutions around them had funds invested in a genocidal foreign occupation, the boycott, divest, sanction movement has been gaining momentum for years. Inspired by the South African anti-apartheid movement, the Palestinian BDS urges nonviolent pressure on Israel until it complies with international law. In Cleveland, healthcare workers have been organizing to pressure their hospital systems to recognize the genocide in Gaza and condemn Israel's crime against their profession. However, in Ohio, these institutional connections with Israel are deeper than they seem at first glance. Following a 1993 visit by then-Governor George Voinovich, Ohio has actively fostered a business relationship with Israel. Today, Ohio's corporate community is so intertwined with the Zionist government that, despite ranking near the bottom in economic growth since 1998, it ranks 12th amongst U.S. states for export to Israel. Ohio politicians regularly engage in bipartisan delegations to Israel to explore opportunities for investment and co-location. An arrangement in which an Israeli company establishes a facility in the United States, this practice builds and reinforces relationships between U.S. capitalists and Israeli startups, particularly in the field of biotechnology. Racist whitewashing propaganda. The narrative of Israel as a miraculous hub of technology and innovation has been a tool to assert its legitimacy. While this line has been pushed hard since the neoliberal turn of the late 1970s, the history of settler thriving hub for the biotech industry. The shiny veneer of innovation, medical technology, and research is part of the image of superiority that Israel strives to project to the world, a beacon of enlightenment in a hostile land. This plays nicely into the racist, whitewashing, propagandist messaging about, quote, making the desert bloom, end quote. Israel's biotechnology, quote, miracles, end quote, have always been undergirded by illegal and unethical practices that should make any medical professional question their humanity. For instance, reports circulating of organ theft from detained Palestinians and desecrated corpses in the pursuit of medical research. The occupation government has also admitted to harvesting skin from Palestinians murdered by the Israeli military and using it to stock their skin banks for Israelis. Despite this horrific ethical breaches, Israel proudly promotes medical science and technology in its, quote, startup nation, end quote, propaganda. It boasted almost 500 active biotech firms in 2021, with 300 research groups and 30 academic centers working on bioconvergence R&D. From 2018 to 2022, with the aid of government initiatives and a remarkably permissive regulatory framework, this sector raised over $3 billion. Israel's deep ties to Cleveland's hospitals. The relationships between Israel and Cleveland medical and educational institutions include joint research collaborations and educational training pipelines. A 2020 trip to Technion University in Haifa saw Case Western Reserve University's Cancer Center partnering with multiple institutions to establish research projects and drum up funding from Zionist philanthropists. University Hospital is also affiliated with Technion, bringing fourth-year medical students to Cleveland to secure rotations at UH sites and facilitate further collaboration between the two institutions. This relationship functions as an exchange program that exposes participants to Zionist ideology. Cleveland Clinic, the largest private employer in Northeast Ohio, co-founder and center of transformative nanomedicine with Hebrew University, which provides for collaboration between researchers from both institutions. The center was kickstarted by a $2 million donation from wealthy Cleveland real estate developer Victor Kahn. Powerful business, political interest. Organizations and individuals who are part of this web of collaboration with Israeli institutions have played key roles in the region for decades. This involvement ranges from leaders in the nonprofit industrial complex to deep-pocketed investment firms and incubators that facilitate collaboration between the criminal Zionist government and the business community of Cleveland. One well-documented example of this dynamic is BioEnterprise, a business incubator that began as an amorphous biotech accelerator at Case Western Reserve University and ended in a spectacular implosion of scandal and corruption in 2020. Despite the scandal, key players in the saga can still be found in positions of power all around the city, from nonprofits to municipal government, where they continue to promote a pro-Zionist agenda. Cracks in the foundation. Taken as a whole, the interconnections between Israeli institutions and Cleveland's medical and research industry may seem insurmountable, but our vantage point at the vanguard of the struggle eliminates the cracks in the foundation. The rising voice of the popular movement for human rights and institutional transparency is beginning to drown out the decrepit drone of the status quo. Those who have operated with impunity are finally encountering resistance from a mass movement with an organized working class coalition at its helm. A featured photo is of healthcare workers in Cleveland's March, June 5th, near the Cleveland Clinic to demand their institution acknowledge the genocide in Gaza. Liberation photo. Hashtag Cleveland, hashtag healthcare, hashtag Palestine. Let's not forget that Zionists in Israel, from my full understanding, have free education and free healthcare at our expense. Because who sends them billions of dollars for that Zionist state? America, the Pentagon, our corporate elites, through their puppet string pulling within our government of our Senate, our Congress, and our judicial system. So it's fully corrupt. And we should totally support BDS. I was at a point where, at one time, where I wasn't fully supportive of BDS because I felt this would mostly hurt the people. Obviously, not knowing enough about the Zionist project, the state of Israel, I always felt some kind of empathy or sympathy for the people there. But my understanding now is that they are not empathetic to humanity. Generally, they shouldn't be there. They're accepting stolen land, seized land from the people of the region. So with this understanding, I fully support BDS. If people have stocks in Israel corporations, companies, the best thing you can do is sell those stocks, just fully divest from them. Chances are these stocks will be falling soon anyways, because everybody is checking out of Israel except for the big military industrial complex. And I don't have to mention which stocks these are, but I know some people have to invest into stocks because it's part of their 401k or something like that, or they need somewhere to put their money. Understandable. But for the meantime, I would totally divest. This is one way to be a class trader, perhaps, and to fully divest from such corrupt corrupt endeavors. I am not a for-profit analyst. This is just my opinion. I have to say this because obviously, but this is a form of activism. And if we look at the leftist or philosophically based Stoic view on this article, we shouldn't be stealing organs. That's just morally easy to say that we shouldn't be benefiting from the pain of others. That is not a just system. That is not a wise system. That is not a brave system. That is not an empathetic system. That is not a system of tolerance. All right. So carry on. I think that's a great idea to divest from these corporations in any way possible. Put on the pressure. Alrighty. Do invest in stocks or a swing trader, perhaps? Maybe trader for good, whatever you sell, give a percentage to an organization to support them when you do make profit. This could also be considered a way of being a class trader because you're in a higher class giving back to the lower class. But then again, you are considered, I guess, some form of a capitalist if you do have large stocks that are profitable to you. Very interesting concept. A lot to talk about there. I know I've seen like podcasts that fully go into stuff like that, right? How to be a good class trader if you're part of the top 1%. We have class traders like Susan Sarandon that are great allies to the left because she speaks with an egalitarian, humanist, holistic mentality, right? And Marlon Brando was also a class trader when he supported the Native Americans and spoke against the genocide of Native Americans that the new colonist Americans had committed. There's Zionist filmmakers, or not even Zionists, just Jewish filmmakers that are speaking at awards against Zionism, against the cruelty of Zionism. They can be considered class traders as well because they are likely not wealthy, but better off than the average indie filmmaker, right? All right. So these are my thoughts, my ideas. Everybody have a great week. Have the great rest of your weekend. Stay strong. Keep reading these articles. Read them on your own time or post questions if you like. Have an excellent day.